Yeah, the one in contact. That, you know, stay husband. Kristen. Yeah. My eyes, it's. Oh, okay, I am. Oh. We haven't heard. I can check to see if it's. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, no, that's why I did. We need to.
Yeah, then we will follow it now.
Yeah.
Because I know we have it. Yes, we have it.
Yeah, I just. Yes, I'll find it. Okay. Okay, it's really.
I know right now. Pero sí.
Yeah, but we are already.
That's when she turned it off. We're already live.
You don't.
Oh,
Sure, Ellen?
yes, ma'am.
Hello, this is Elizabeth. We're just waiting for Mr. Delgado to come in.
Okay,
So if you want to hold for a little while, just to note that we are live on Zoom.
yes, yes, ma'am. I'll go ahead and I'll put it in mute. I'll just talk whenever I need to. Thank you, ma'am.
Whether it rains.
Yeah. You're good, don't sweat it.
Not a member issue.
So we need to pull them because it's not a ratification. Well, it's not a ratification, it's a nominal. Well, this is the rule. What's it? So it is. Yeah, you can still go, yeah, you can still request it, yeah. Yeah, but it won't be after the fact, it'll be before the fact. Yeah.
It's an approval. Ready? Okay, ready? Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everybody.
Want to welcome everybody to the Laredo College Fort McIntosh campus. Today is Tuesday, April 23, 2024. It is approximately 5:34 PM. And I call the Finance and Audit Committee meeting to order. Proceed to agenda item number 2, which is roll call. Jorge Delgado, present. Esteban Rangel.
I'm present.
Thank you, sir. Karina Elizondo, absent. Ms. Tita Cantuvela.
Here.
And for the record, we are also graced with the magnificent presence of trustee Erica Benavides Garcia. We'll move on to agenda item number 3, the March 2024 financial report. Mr. Cesar Vela.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Ramirez. For the record, Cesar Vela, Vice President of Finance and Administration. Included with your board packet, you received a copy of the March 31st, 2024 financial report. I'll briefly go over the highlights of the report. Starting off with the general operating revenues, which are on your booklet under the general fund tab, pages G2. For the year, we have general operating revenue of 75,722,460. A couple of items to note. Number one is we did receive the 1.2 million for the dual program. This is the FAST funding that we received from the state. And this is for the fall semester. So again, this was based on the semester credit hours that were generated by the dual students. The reimbursement rate for this payment was at $55 per semester credit hour. So again, 1.2 million that we initially did not include in the budget for this year. So this will be additional revenue that will be collected. As far as the revenue for tuition, we are at 4.4 million, and this represents fall and spring semester. Again, it still doesn't factor in the May semester, summer 1 and summer 2 semesters. So we're at about 68.7% of our budget. At this point last year, we were at 69%. So we're pretty much in line with what we had projected in revenue for tuition and fee. As far as pending items, we do have a couple of pending items, and those are the transfers that need to be made at the end of July, and these are for the payment of the revenue bond and the maintenance tax note. So we have approximately 3.9 million that will be reduced from our revenue of 75 million, and an additional 3 million for the maintenance tax payments. Again, so those transfers will be made out at the end of July. Payments due August 1st, and that will be an interest in principal and interest payments for the revenue bonds and the maintenance tax notes. Again, pending revenue, we're still pending to collect or collect 25% of the state appropriation. So we've already received 75% or 14.3 million of the 19 million that the state will be contributing this year. So we have a balance of 4.7 million. As far as taxes, we do have a balance of 3.6 million based on the 98% collection rate. So for the year, we've collected $41,916,087, or 92% of what we budgeted for the year. So again, we still have some line items of revenue that we'll be seeing for the next couple of months. And again, those two transfers that I mentioned. So again, at this point right now, the 105.2% that we have recognized in revenue will be, again, adjusted as we close out the fiscal year. But we do, again, anticipate to actually collect more than what we had budgeted, which was the 71 million. Any questions on revenue? Okay, on page G4 of your booklet, you'll find the general operating expenses for the year. As of March 31st, the expenses totaled 36,671,811, or almost 51% of our budget. At this point last year, we were exactly at 51% also. We don't have any major variances to report when it comes to expenditures. So pretty much what we projected to be at this point of the fiscal year, we pretty much met those projections. We don't anticipate any other fluctuations at this time. Again, we do have April, May, June, July, and August to still record. And obviously, those expenses will change the bottom line number. As for the other funds, for the Import-Export Center, we've already received the 141,000 appropriation from the state, which represents 100% of the revenue for the center. Expenses for the year are 35,145, which is 24.9% of the budgeted expenses. So for the year, we have a net increase to the fund balance in that particular fund of $106,019. The expenses of 35,145 are mostly salary and benefit expenses that are for the employees that are working in the center. So those expenses are primarily make up the bulk of the expenses for the center. For auxiliary services, out of a budget of 1,584,188, we have collected revenue of 1,231,715, almost 78% of what we budgeted for. The expenses are 924,911 or 48.2%. We do have a net change or increase to the fund balance at this time of 306,804. As far as restricted
Mr. Vela.
funds, yes, ma'am.
Chair recognizes Dr. Ramirez.
For the record, we're not in the red in this account. So I'm just saying, because when I inherited, we were in the red.
Yes, no, we're positive. Restricted funds, for the year, we have received funding from federal and state sources of 20,935,506. 85% of the funding that you see under the restricted funds is federal funding. And out of those 85, about 93% comes from the Pell program, from Title IV. So again, for the year, it totals 20.9 million. Expenses and revenue at this time total, so equal, I'm sorry. And it represents both fall and spring allocations already for Title IV. One other note under the restricted funds, we are working on closing the CARES Act funding that we received. We have until the end of June to spend down on those funds. As you are aware, we are participating with the city of Laredo on the CARES Act, Laredo CARES 3.0. So that will help us reduce the available funds that we have from the CARES funding. We have approximately about 900,000. And in addition to that, we are working through the student meal plan. So again, the end of the funding will come June 30th, and we'll start working on closing out that grant. The Facilities Master Plan Phase 3, the board approved the final project for this phase, which is more vocational welding lab improvements. All the funds have been allocated. We currently have 3 projects that are ongoing, which is the La Marbury Vergara, the Law Enforcement Training Center, and the diesel shop expansion. The work for the welding lab improvements will begin as soon as we have that contract finalized. So we're projecting that work should be starting next month, or at least the preparations we'll start working on those. So for the year, we began with 12.8 million in the Facilities Master Plan Phase 3. We've collected interest revenue of 327,000. The expenses for the year, construction expenses for the year are 4.8 million. So for a net change of 4.5 million. So the balance as of March 31st stands at 8,352,960. Again, we're working on the final projects, and we should be completed with this phase in about 12 to 18 months. Tax collections, as of March 31st, 2024, we've collected $41,916,087. That represents 91% of our tax levy for the year. At this point, last year, we were at 93.21%. So again, we are still monitoring collections, and I do believe there is an item on the agenda for an update on delinquent taxes, and that will be provided by Mr. Muir's office. And the final item is the general operating fund balance. Again, we began the fiscal year with a fund balance of 5.5 million. For the year, we have revenues of 75.7 million, expenses of 36.6 million. We do have a transfer, and this is the transfer that is made at the beginning of the fiscal year to cover deferred maintenance. So the total that was transferred to the deferred maintenance account was 1.6 million. So our net change of $37,368,034, and this is as of March 31st. We do have, like I mentioned, the following months of expenses to record. So at this point right now, the fund balance stands at 42,880,566. Any questions on any of the items or?
No, sir. Thank you, Mr. Vela. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 4, approval of the February 2024 quarterly investment report. Mr. Cesar Vela.
Yes, board members, we are going to be asking that the board approve the quarterly investment report as of February 29, 2024 at the Thursday meeting. In your booklets, you do have a copy of the quarterly investment report along with a copy of the monthly investment report. For the quarter ended February 29th, the bank deposits totaled 126,475,389. Investment pools, we had a total of 20,305,497 for a total investments of 146,780,885. The yields that we're currently earning as of February 29th in the demand deposits accounts were yielding 4.41%. The Lone Star investment pool yielded 5.52%, and the FIT investment pool was 5.51%. The total interest revenue for the second quarter totaled $1,396,752. Any questions on that?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Vela.
Thank you.
Move on to agenda item number 5, approval for the purchase of audio-visual equipment. Mr. Cesar Vela.
Yes, board members, we are asking also for approval for the purchase of audiovisual equipment. This equipment is being purchased from Absant using a TIPS contract number 200904. The total amount of the purchase is $430,333.20. The equipment will replace the audio, the control system, projection screen, and projector in 14 classrooms in the Atkins building and 16 classrooms in the Eloy Garcia building. Again, this is all budgeted under the fiscal year 2024 budget equipment line items. And again, this is being done to upgrade all the audiovisual equipment in these 2 classrooms. We are currently working on building or working on the budget for next year to continue this process of updating the audiovisual equipment. So we do have buildings throughout campus that need to be updated. Any questions on this one item?
No questions at this time. Thank you, Mr. Vela. All right, we'll quickly move on to agenda item number 6, approval of contract for temporary staffing services. Mr. Cesar Vela.
Yes, board members, we are asking that the board approve contracts with the following firms, and this is to provide temporary staffing services to Laredo College. We did go out for a request for proposals. We did receive 15 responses. We did an evaluation based on the following criteria, which was price, history, and references. The committee that did the evaluation is recommending that we award contracts to Elite Employment Services LLC, DLP Staffing and Temporary Services LLC, and 5 Star Staffing. The employee categories to be included in these contracts are general maintenance staff, event setup staff, warehouse clerks, and office clerks. And again, this is only on an as-needed basis as determined by the college.
Any questions from members of the committee? No
No,
questions at this time. Thank you, Mr. Vela.
thank you.
All right, we'll quickly move on to agenda item number 7, approval of the IME Becas Scholarship Matching Fund increase as per donor request. Dr. Adana Ortiz.
Good afternoon, members of the Finance and Audit Committee. Dr. Diana Ortiz, Vice President of Institutional Advancement. Today, I come before you asking for approval of the IME Becas Scholarship Matching Fund increase as per the donor. I'm asking that the board approve a $1,000 increase. The goal is to benefit the students from the border region that are enrolled and residing in the United States or who have an active I-20 student status. The total of the IME Becas fund that they will provide is $11,000 instead of $10,000 as presented on the March 28, 2024 board meeting, agenda item 11B. So it increased from the $10,000 to the $11,000. And of course, the increase of the match would be available through the restricted scholarship amount 280001, and the funds would be deposited into the IME Becas Scholarship Fund 280-351.
Any questions from members of the committee? All right. Thank you, Dr. Ortiz.
No, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rangel. We'll move on to agenda item number 8, approval of budgeted cash matching funds required for the 2024 Texas Workforce Commission Jobs and Education for Texas JET grant application to be submitted on behalf of Laredo College by the Grants Department. Dr. Ortiz.
Again, good afternoon, members of the Finance and Audit Committee. Dr. Diana Ortiz, Vice President of Institutional Advancement. Today, I come before you asking for the approval of a budgeted cash matching funds required for the 2024 Texas Workforce Commission Jobs and Educations for Texas JET grant application. For the application is for $350,000 in equipment funding that Laredo College will be making the request for additional emergency medical service program equipment. We're asking that the match be $17,500 in cash match over a 1-year grant period. And the matching fund amount is 5% of the total equipment cost. The Texas Workforce Commission will contribute 95% of that total equipment cost of the $350,000. The money would be placed in account 280001 and transferred into the state direct account.
Any questions?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Ortiz. We'll move on to agenda item number 9, the ratification of monetary donation by Licenciado Eduardo Garza, Unitrade Forwarding LC, to create an endowment and corpus matched as requested by the donor and recommended by the Office of Donor Relations. Dr. Diana Ortiz.
Good afternoon, members of the Finance and Audit Committee. Dr. Diana Ortiz, Vice President of Institutional Advancement. I will defer this item to the Director of Development, Mr. Rene Gonzalez.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. We here before you to ask that you ratify a donation that's being made by Mr. Eduardo Garza for a scholarship program for the Logistics and Distribution Program. And we are also asking that from the board that they match the requirement that we're doing for $20,000 in hopes that we continue a partnership and work together to create a better, larger fund and endowment in support of the Logistics and Distribution Program.
Any questions from members of the committee? All right.
No, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you.
All right, agenda item number 10, status of efforts to collect current year delinquent property taxes. Mr. Rusty Muir.
Mr. Chairman, board members, and Dr. Ramirez, I just wanted to give you an update on what our efforts are. And I think a good place to start would be to just go back to January of this year and look at our current year collection rate in January of this year. So it was 80.30%. You might remember I brought that up to you a few months ago and mentioned that the year before, for January, we had an 85% collection rate. And the year prior to that, it was 83.6. So what my concern was, even before those taxes became delinquent, that the collections were trending downward. We've been monitoring that very closely. Since they turned, the taxes became delinquent, the current year's taxes on February 1, we're starting to close the gap. So if you look at the data, the fresh data we have is through the end of March. Well, this is, and I'll mention, Dr. Ramirez reminded me of something, but I'll mention a comment about that, because it is significant what I want to share with you. But the collection rate for the current year's taxes at the end of March of 2024 is 91.2%. So last year it was 93.2%. We're still 2 percentage points behind. And we're working overtime to try to catch up here. A problem we ran into this month. Yes, sir.
Do you have a dollar amount as far as what those 2%?
Yes, sir, I do. So current year's collections in the month of March was 1,103,627. And that actually beat the collections for last year. Last year was 880,170. But again, the prior months, we were so far behind that we've been putting in extra efforts to try and catch up, and we are narrowing the gap. And, you know, I attribute that, I'm sure that the Webb County tax assessor is doing some work to get that done, but we're also working very hard to try to accomplish that. So here's what happened is every month, 12 months out of the year, we get from the Webb County tax assessor data. It's the tax roll for the month ending, whatever, you know, month that is. And it'll tell us, here's all the tax accounts. This is how much each taxpayer is delinquent. You know, are these taxpayers bankruptcy? Are they, you know, all kinds of information. We take that data and then we upload it into our program. It's a Paradox program, manipulate it and start targeting accounts. So this month for April, we've received some data, not until Friday last week, and it's not usable. So it's very concerning to me, because that is how we start targeting the accounts. We of course targeting larger accounts and so forth. We tried multiple emails, conversations with a Webb County tax assessor collector, you know, give us this data, we need it right away. No response. That evidently two of their employees that were the only ones trained on how to work with this data and provide it to us in a way that we can, you know, manipulate it, that they've resigned. So there doesn't seem to be any end in sight. Last week, as I saw that we were getting basically nowhere, we just did it by hand. We ended up, you know, over about a 3 or 4 day period and did it by hand. And we sent if you will, a blast mail out. Dr. Ramirez was telling me about it the other day. She knows somebody. It's a postcard you get in the mail, and it says you're delinquent and we're going to sue you, and call us right away so that you can avoid a lawsuit and court costs. That's very effective. We had Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, Monday. It was Friday, Monday, and today. Lots of people coming over the office and making arrangements to pay out their taxes. But, you know, we're having some trouble. My understanding is that Webb County is having some issues too. I've shared with you a little bit about some of the internal issues there at the Webb County tax assessor, but we're ramping up lawsuits. I mean, we did earlier yesterday, you know, I mean, okay, all hands on deck. Let's file a slew of lawsuits so that we can pick up close this gap. You know, we don't want to, the trend, to me, is horrible. It's and the buck stops with me with it. But if I don't get this tax assessor, you know, helping us with it, I feel like we're just treading with water. But you've got from March of 2024, you go back 4 years, it's just 5 years. It's just a downward trend, and and we're not used to that, because if and I have the figures going all the way back to 2008, 2009. When we started back then, we were turning a ship, and it was hard to do. back in 2008, 2009, the collection rate was in March, 87.6. And the next year, we increased and so when we closed out the year in 2008, 2009 at 96%, that was a good year. And then we started improving it. And so the last few years we closed out, God, I'd go back almost 10 years, above 98%, probably 99. And it just it's disturbing, but we're going to continue working hard at it and try to straighten out this issue with the data. We've got to get that data from the Webb County Tax Assessor. And I filled in Dr. Minita on this. Actually, this month, been keeping her in the loop so she knows she's aware about this problem with the data. And any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
What's sad? I think everybody's having problems.
Yeah.
An overall problem, not only, I mean, it's not only affecting us, everybody.
Yeah, that's the
It's
truth.
just-
Yeah.
I mean, the economy right now,
The
it's
inflation.
not, I mean, it's just, I went and filled up the car with gas and I nearly flipped.
Yeah.
Just
That's
with
going
that
up
alone.
again.
Then I went to a grocery store, whoop. So it's sad.
And Mr. Mayor, the problems that you're having at the Webb County Tax Assessor Collector's Office, is that just this year? Or has it been a problem that's been going?
We've
This
seen a little bit more of it this year. There's some last year,
The last couple of years.
but and I'm not taking anything away from Miss Barrera. We all know she's
Yeah.
ultra efficient and, a taskmaster and
Right.
so forth, but she's got a deputy there that we're having a little bit of trouble with. And I'd rather not mention any names at the board meeting.
don't have
or anything.
Any other questions for members of the committee?
No, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, it is exactly 6:00 PM and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Esteban.
Was it good?
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.